Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Doug and we're going to talk a little bit about baseball cap materials today. Specifically, I want to look at the question of wool versus polyester as a baseball cap material. This is a frequent theme of questions on my channel, and I often give guidance from my experience working with both materials. So really I just want to summarize some of the characteristics of each material and then compare how well they work for different features and functions that you expect out of your baseball caps. So we'll go ahead and get started in this wool v polyester debate by looking at wool. Now this is, I think, probably one of nature's wonder materials. I mean, obviously it's been used in so many different ways over the centuries. In thin weaves, it's used as a fine garment fabric. Other times it's kept very thick and used as an insulating garment. It's very versatile. I think that there's a good case to be made that it was really the original performance fiber, as we hear so much about that with other man-made and engineered materials. Wool has so many properties that make it a versatile and a very desirable fiber to use in fabric and clothing. Now, polyester is a different story. It's often referred to as a man-made or engineered material. It was first released to the public really around 1951. DuPont had a hand in that after some developments elsewhere around the world. It quickly caught on as a very durable and inexpensive fabric material. Despite the fact that it didn't need to be pressed, it was easy to clean. You know, it also acquired the reputation that it was uncomfortable to wear. And you can think about that as some of the long ago fabrics in polyester clothing. It's got a really bad reputation from the 70s. As you would see from the world of athletic clothing, that the properties of polyester have evolved a great deal. So we use it for wicking. It's stain resistant, it's highly durable, it's still very inexpensive compared to other materials. So it's just really become a workhorse in athletic wear. And it's easy to see when you see trade names like Nike's Dry Fit or other engineered microfiber materials, how far polyester has come since the dark days of the 70s, when it was just really a terrible fabric for clothing that got overused and people got sick of it in a hurry. Now, when it comes to New Era using materials in their caps, wool was the longtime standard, as it was for baseball caps in almost every phase of their lifespan, up until the year 2007. So New Era had been making the on-fields, the authentic collection in wool up until the year 2007, when they actually switched to polyester. So at the time, this was really keeping in step with the developments in athletic clothing. So a lot was made about the performance abilities of the polyester that New Era was using in their caps, specifically the maintenance of a rich saturated color, the resistance to staining, the cleanability, and also the wicking performance, so the moisture distribution performance that it can provide for a high-level athlete that's sweating in it all the time. Now, it should be said that ever since 2007, it has been the authentic collection using polyester, but there are still several wool caps made by New Era across different collections and in what are their so-called fashion caps, so anything outside of the authentic collection. As you may recall, New Era closed their last U.S. manufacturing plant that made consumer caps in early 2019, so you can no longer find the Made in USA caps. The universal sense amongst my viewers has been that those Made in USA materials were a notch above what we get from the contract manufactured caps, no matter what source country they're coming from. When I think about the initial break-in, comparing wool versus polyester, I would say that it is very similar. You are starting with the same set of materials underneath, which is the cap sizing and the visor material, both very important for the fit and structure of the cap, along with the buckram in the front two panels. Those are all the same. So the initial break-in of these is very similar. If you like to curve your visor, New Era uses the same visor material as the substrate in here. So that'll take a curve. I've got plenty of videos that show my technique for using steam to curve that. But overall, I would say that the experience of breaking in, shaping, editing the cap when you first start to wear it is very similar between the wool and polyester. Now, a second factor is, do you need to stretch the cap? And I've got plenty of guidance on my channel on how to stretch your caps. But generally speaking, I would say that the approach is very similar and the results are generally similar. And I think that's because of the same reasons I mentioned, because you've still got a plastic band that's inside your sweatband down at the bottom there that's stitched into the fabric panels as well. That plastic band basically forms the sizing ring. So that's a harder item to stretch, and that's why you need the heat and you need the force of something like a hat jack to do that effectively. And it's really that combination of heat plus the force from the hat jack that stretches that plastic ring inside of there. So that does not change from wool to poly. Now, the one thing I would say is that after you're done stretching and you've got it broken in, I think the wool has a better shape memory in that it seems to retain its shape better over time once you've got it fit to your head. So that's the one edge I would give to wool, is that I noticed after I've stretched my wool caps in particular, they seem to stay where I like them to be. Whereas the polyester caps, I find that I need to refresh a stretch on those every 6 to 9 months or so. Over that 6 to 9 month period, I'll see kind of a little bit of a return to the store-bought shape with the polyester caps. I just feel like wool is a little bit more customizable and has better shape memory when I've been trying to stretch it. Now, on the flip side of that, what if you need to shrink a cap? I think that when I have had to try and shrink caps, naturally wool is the better performer. Most of us have been familiar with the fact that wool just simply shrinks a lot easier than any other fabric. So when you get heat and moisture, those wool fibers really draw up tight and they tend to shrink garments pretty easily. So it's no different with fitted caps. The wool material responds a lot better and will shrink when exposed to water and moisture. So if you're wearing it frequently, sweating in it frequently, it is going to shrink a little bit. A lot of times, if you are trying to shrink it, like I've shown in some other videos, you have to be careful because that material can draw up so tight that it can also create some unpleasant visual defects around the seams on the cap, you know, where the crown panels are stitched together. You can get a little bit of puckering at that material as you try and shrink. And that's just simply from the panels kind of pulling at those seam lines, and it really just kind of puckers up the material. And that takes me to the last observation that I had on these materials, which is how does each of them wear? Well, I'd say wool certainly has a rougher feel to the touch. It's got a rougher nap on the outside. The polyester is definitely a smoother and softer fabric. I would also say that the characteristics that made polyester a good choice do kind of emerge when you're using the caps in sort of more demanding environments. So on a sunny day, either cap material is going to be hot. Despite any marketing claims that say that you know, one hat's going to cool you off better than the other, I don't buy that personally. I think you've got a layer of fabric across your head. It's going to be hot. The one thing that I would say is that the polyester caps do seem to do a slightly better job of what we refer to all the time in sportswear as wicking the moisture away. It does tend to distribute the moisture a little bit better and allow for a little bit more air drying of that or evaporation of the moisture. So I think that polyester has a slight edge in that respect. And I do feel that over time the wool caps can feel a little bit hotter because they're just sort of a sink for the moisture that you're putting out as you sweat. So I would just say that the poly cleans up a little bit easier, and initially it's a little bit more resistant to staining. So that's a slight edge I'd give to polyester as well. So as you consider these two materials for ball caps, I think it's pretty clear that you've got a couple of edges given to wool because of its ability to shape and manipulate and kind of retain the shape of your head. Plus, it's nature's original wonder material, so there's just centuries of use of wool. So I could make a good case for that being a great ball cap material. And then secondly, the polyester represents more of an engineered material that's designed to work with your body and athletic competition as you sweat and use it. And I think it does a better job at some of those things being durable under the athletic conditions that you put it into, and also cleaning up a little bit better and being a little bit resistant to staining, fading, all those things. You get really rich color saturation and longevity with the polyester as well. So those are the kind of trade-offs that I see. I feel that wool is most often my personal choice, but I'm not making any purchase decisions on whether it's wool or polyester. It's more the design of the cap and that team, whatever. So it's not a huge consideration for me. Last thing to note with polyester is it does appear as the base material in some of these newer materials, Diamond Era, which I believe was 2011 or 2012, and also items like Hex Tech of the past couple of years. That's also a polyester base fabric. So really, when you get wool, it's going to be the wool broadcloth, the flat material, and any of these newer interesting weaves that New Era has done over the past few years have exclusively been polyester. So that's what I wanted to cover with you today. Just my observations on wool v polyester, that timeless debate in baseball caps. And so hopefully you got some good information out of that. But other than that, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.